Hi everyone, my name is Adam Chau and I'm an artist in New York. I wanted to thank Artaxis for inviting me to talk about industry in ceramics. As for my formal training, I studied ceramics at Maine College of Art and did a post-baccalaureate at Michigan State University. And ultimately, I wanted to look at seriality and industry, so I went to graduate school at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago and studied industrial design. When I went to SAIC, I wanted to define what industry was because I also wanted to retain a sense of the handmade, but blend it with technology that I was learning. So I created this 2x2 axis, which looks at the digital and the analog on one axis, and on the other, it looks at the manufactured versus the handmade. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this axis, but it is a chronology of craft processes. And if you look at the bottom left quadrant, I was really interested in the digital and the handmade combining together. So my thesis was that if digital technology helped in seriality, could I take an element of spontaneity into it? And my way of doing that was making handmade tools to put into machines like CNC machines. What you're watching right now is my CNC machine surfacing a porcelain tile with cobalt. I use various animal hairs on different pieces to get different results, meaning a thinner brush would make thinner lines and different hairs have different material properties, so it would produce a different line because it's just picking up the material differently. And what you're seeing right now is a selfie being drawn. And I think about selfies a lot because it's a new term within our culture, but in reality, self-portraiture isn't a modern idea at all. And I think by using an individual brush for each piece, I'm kind of saying that we're all individuals presenting ourselves within technology. These are the results from the video, and as you can see, I can get quite literal or really abstract. And I don't throw anything away, I just take it for what it is because it's almost like a big science experiment. I'm changing one variable at a time, and I want to showcase everything to see the results. I'm really interested in how industry is presented throughout history, and I found this one little section of Japanese and Chinese culture where the Chinese were exporting ceramic wares for the Japanese tea ceremony called kosumetsuke. And what it really was were silhouetted dishes that were filled in with cobalt lines. And it was a mark of both perfection and imperfection. And I wanted to take my own take on it. So what I did is I made little moth plates for dry goods, and I used a moth image because within kosumetsuke there is this idea of the imperfect cobalt line, and it says that it looks like a moth-eaten edge. So I really take value in the fact that each plate is different and all the surfaces are different from the CNC process. This was a project I did for the Bellevue Arts Museum out next to Seattle, and I was really questioning whether I was the maker or if the author was really the CNC machine that I was using, because the CNC machine is almost autonomous in itself. I don't really control the movements and I can't predict what's coming out of it. So in a sense, it has its own authority to it. And these plates are painting the Chinese character for I because I'm rhetorically asking myself, like, am I the maker? Is the machine the maker? And what I did is I used 6 different brushes and drew the character 6 different times per each plate, and I got a different result. And some of them, the mark wouldn't even show up. It would just be like a drip or a small little smudge. And I still took that as an end result because the motion was the same. And with this digital technology, tolerances are so tight, it's within usually 0.02 millimeters from each other. I was really trying to explore how to expand the field of industrial design, saying that we don't actually need tight tolerances for surface decorations like this one. In this piece, I was exploring how palm prints are different from hand to hand, and I presented these palm plates where they're two hands put together, and I used two different tool paths and two different brushes, one on the left-hand side and one on the right-hand side. And I displayed them in a grid because I think that it really exploits seriality, and you can look at it from afar and see that it is a module and that there is kind of a repetition between everything. But as you come closer, you'll see that everything is one of a kind and different from the different surfaces. And in this case, I presented all the tools in one plate. There are about 100 brushes, and even the tools are different, even if it's using the same animal hair like fox or caribou. That's one of my favorites right now. So I'm really looking at how we can both be similar and different at the same time. Another body of work that I've been making looks at how we can change historic imagery into imagery that we interpret now. This is a heirloom plate that my grandmother gave me, and I don't understand any of the symbology or the motifs. So the flowers, the animals, the mountain, I don't know if this is a fictional place or a real place. And I decided to reinterpret it in a way that I would understand it. I chose to replace all of the objects and animals with emojis because it's so prevalent in the digital age. I like how taking out the background makes an interesting composition that's quite contemporary, but the source imagery is rooted in traditional landscape. Here's a reinterpretation of a Willow Weir image. I've taken out all the patterning and only left the objects and animals. And if you look closely at the original, you can see that the perspective is completely off, and I think my version also has a sense of two-dimensionality that also alludes to a computer screen. Growing up, I ate off of this ironstone plate, and not too long ago I realized that there actually isn't any order to the flowers, so it isn't a true repeating pattern, and I found this really interesting in terms of an industrial object. My reinterpretation uses flower emojis that don't use a horizon line and is more of a chaotic composition that's still held within a frame, which is the flange of the plate. Thank you so much for listening to this presentation. If you want to get in touch with me, you can contact me at info@adamchau.com. And if you want to look at all of my new work, you can go on Instagram at AdamCharlesChau.